A failed print. It's every builder's nightmare. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I fix a failed print and get it looking like new again. It's today's video, so come check it out.
You're only one
What's up, everyone? Back at it again. It is DW Darkwing Dad. Whipped this video together here for you because we had a failed print. And I know this is a video I did a long time ago. It was terribly edited. And I figure something like this pops up. I wanted to show you guys my process and how I'm going to fix this. Shows a couple reasons 3D prints fail. I'm not going to get into it too much. It could be something as simple as a clog. It could be a blown out support. This was actually because I had one of my wires on my CR10 Mini not zip tied down. I had the issue with the lightning, so I was swapping parts back and forth while I snipped some zip ties off. Didn't put another zip tie on, and the cord actually came through and actually hit this and sent it flying. It was printing upside down, so I figured I would show you my whole process and really the right way to do it structurally. You're really merging the piece back together. You're not relying on glue or body fillers and things that you shouldn't be using to hold it together. Totally seamless. You'll never know that this thing ever failed. So with that being said, what I'm going to do is show you my process on the computer of how I go about and starting the repair when a print like this fails. Slicer. And essentially what we have to do...
Wait, whoa! What the
No more grainy film recording. Yay! Is we have to print separately the part where it failed. Somewhere in this area right here. What we have to do is we have to drop this down on this build plate. Click on the model and you've got your positioning tool right here, and you're just going to drop this down to a specific point. Now, how do you find that point? Well, really the easiest thing is to take your model when it's printed and kind of measure from where it ends to here. Now, you can do that in Windows 3D Builder. I'll show you in a second. You can do it with a tape measure, anything that you can get to try to get an accurate measurement. But one thing that can be tricky, if you have this angled, and you can see I have this printed upside down. Let's say loaded this on our slicer and it loaded it like this. Trying to get that exact angle of where it was printed upside down may be tricky. One, you can just leave your slicer open, don't close it out. Turn your snap rotation on, and that will actually tell you what degree that you moved it at, and you can just take a picture of that degree with your phone, or you can write it down so you can remember what degree that was placed at, because if you don't get that exact degree, it's not going to be in the exact position. So if we were to drop this down and this was off by, a couple degrees, where we need to reslice this, it would be off. Got this thing pretty darn close because I left my slicer open, and all I did was took this and dropped this down. I measured and dropped it down to the exact millimeter. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Now, once you have all this set up, what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead, do all your settings to however you want. You're going to hit slice. It's going to go ahead and reslice this. You're going to pop your SD card in. You're going to save it. You're going to plug it into your printer. You're going to print that piece and you're going to weld it together, which I'll show you how to do. The other way that you can do this really just depends on if you can get it to lay in the right place. You would hit edit, you would select the model, and then you would hit split. Let's just say the top part of this had failed. So what we want to do is we want to select keep top. This is the pane of where you would get it to. So let's just say you're going to measure it, and let's say it was, I don't know, like 13 millimeters or something up, whatever, and you're going to click split. And what it will do is it's going to split this model exactly where that plane is. Now, this is just created in a whole new STL, okay? So now we'll select this, and we'll hit object and settle, and now there's a whole separate new file now. So you can go ahead and go to your file option here in Windows 3D Builder, and you can save this file, and then you would just load that into your slicer and go ahead and print it. Certain models I like to use this, and the reason why I like to use 3D Builder in sometimes is because Windows 3D Builder actually has a measuring tool and measure the certain size. So if you want something a little bit more accurate, you can go ahead and click one point here, and then if you have an exact measurement, so let's say it's somewhere around here, it'll go to that exact point. You can see it locks in. boom, it gives you the exact measurement. So if you want to get it down to the exact tenth of a millimeter, this is a nice little tool with Windows 3D Builder. Using it with Cura, you should be able to get it pretty close. The reality is you're going to have to go ahead and weld this. You're going to have to put some filler. You're going to have to sand it to want to have it really close. So now that we went ahead and did that with our file, let me show you what it looks like and how we're going to repair it.
All right, so here's the bottom part of the piece that we printed separately after doing our measuring and everything. And what we're going to do is line this up with the top piece here. And you can see from the measuring that I did, I got it pretty darn close. So this should be a fairly easy transition of welding these two pieces and merging them together. So the first thing that I like to do is get these lined up. I like to use Gorilla duct tape to temporarily hold them together. Depending on how accurately you measured and really the location of how your pieces are split, you may be able just to glue them. However, I know sometimes even if you're off by just a millimeter or two, you need a little bit of play area to kind of shift it and move it. So the Gorilla duct tape does that. It holds it together, but still allows you a little bit of play room if you need it. So what we want to do is go ahead and start welding the inside of the mesh. That's the most important part of welding it together. So we want to go ahead and grab our soldering iron and get this process started. We're going to weld both the inside and the outside, but spending a little bit more time on the inside because that's going to be the strongest of the bonds. So what you want to do is take your soldering iron and just kind of push it. We want to dig it into the PLA, if you want to say, for a little bit, because we really want those plastics to merge together. The outside we want to be a little bit more delicate on, but the inside, it can look a little bit messy because that's the inside of the mask. We can always cover that with padding or things like that, but the main focus is really getting that PLA heated back up and merged together. You're going to have these little bumps, and you can sand those down on the inside if you want. We definitely want to sand them on the outside, but go through and just make sure you have a really good weld, that you're closing that gap, ensuring that all of the PLA is formed together. And we're going to do that same process on the outside, just maybe go a little bit slower, make it look a little bit cleaner for better cleanup. If you have some gaps or anything, don't be afraid to take some spare PLA. And again, we want to fill in that gap. We don't want to just cake body filler or glue in there. We want to merge and fuse that plastic back together. So same process, we want to go along the seam on the outside and fill that in. Now, you're going to go ahead and sand this. So if you create little bumps or anything on the outside, those are all going to get smoothed out, and the little dips and craters, those are all going to get filled in by body filler. So don't worry about that at all. The main thing we want to focus on is merging that PLA together, making sure that there's no gaps, and doing it in a clean manner. That way we're not creating more sanding or work for ourselves in the next process of the repair. So now we have our model all welded together here. The first thing we want to do is go ahead and sand this weld. We want to get this nice and smooth. So I'm going to sand this down with some 80 grit and then some 220. You can use a power sander if you want for a model like this, because it's really on the tip of this nose here. We don't want to generate too much heat and cause that to sag or deform. Using one of my detail sanders here and show you the next step. So let me get this knocked out. As we want to go ahead and get some body filler on here. You can see we have just some gaps here from where the soldering iron went over. Some of them are a lot smoother than others, but we still have some little dips and valleys here. Now, very important thing, we are using a body filler, not a putty, and a lot of people mix these up sometimes. Another reason is, and I've said it before, is a lot of times people just use the term Bondo as a general consensus. They think it's all the same thing.
No, dude, no.
But we are using a body filler. The reason why we're not using a putty is because putties, although they are great when used in certain instances, do have a higher shrink rate. Something like this where it's a little bit deeper, if you put that putty on too thick, too deep, when it cures and dries, it'll shrink, it'll crack. Eliminate the whole reason why you put that on there. Body fillers have hardeners, so once that hardener is present, it pretty much completely solidifies. Very minimal shrink rate. Awesome product when used properly. I know I touched on Bondo. We're not even using Bondo. We are using upol dolphin glaze. Great product. It doesn't require a ton of hardener. You have a little bit more play time. So I'm going to show you how to mix this up and apply this right now. These mixing pallets, these are really nice for body filler. Bend these and crack them, or what I do is just take a metal scraper and just kind of scrape it off here. We don't need a ton, but if you've ever used Bondo body filler, obviously this is going to be a very similar process. The resin, it's a poly resin, polyester base. Beauty of this body filler is it doesn't need a ton of hardener. A lot of times people run into issues with body fillers just because they don't mix the ratios properly. They put too much hardener in. This is literally all the hardener that we're gonna need. I mean, like the half of the size of a pea. You do not need a ton of hardener for this. So the play time is, it's pretty good. And I'm gonna mix this in here. And you wanna make sure you're mixing this up good. I like using a flat surface because if you try doing it in like a dish or a cup, a lot of times the hardener can like go in a corner and you're not going to be able to get it out. This is completely flat and we know we are good. You want to be careful because you don't want to, you don't want this like seeping over the edges too much. And if you get some on, you can kind of wipe it off with your finger. What we want to do is just kind of spread this over the seam without making too much of a mess here. You don't really need a ton on your spreader because really all we're trying to do is just kind of smooth out where some of those little craters are. And you can even do this with your finger. And I think in some of these areas it would actually be easier. In some of my other videos I've used my finger and this probably would have been easier on here, but I wanted to show you with the spreader. So I was trying to get it as flat as possible, but this is still a pretty intricate little spot here. Stuff sands down super easy. It does dry very quick, which is nice. I'm going to show you a different method for in here. We're going to let this sit for about 20 minutes and sand this down and see how it looks. I hit this with the same thing I did before to prep it, 80 and 220. And again, when you guys are using fillers, the purpose is not to load this on and build over the layer of PLA. The idea is to fill in those little divots and those dips and things like that. So you can see, although we did put this filler across this whole panel on both sides, it only filled in really where we needed it to. So these are relatively smooth now. Now the next process in this is applying the glazing putty. Fill in any pinholes. It's just a proper finishing step. It fills in those minor imperfections that maybe the sandpaper missed, that potentially the filler primer won't fill in. So what I'm gonna do is just gonna throw my glove on and apply this by hand. So if you've never used this stuff, this is pre-mixed. There's no hardener. There's nothing that you need. It's got a pretty good play time. Sands really easy. So I'm just going to apply it over the same area where I applied the filler, let it dry, and then we'll sand it down.
2,000 years later.
So now tackling that little intricate area on the side where that weld kind of overlapped, what I like to do with that is go back to my Bondo glazing putty and I will dilute that down a little bit with some acetone and apply it with a brush. This is really the best procedure for this because if you do happen to put the putty on a little bit too thick, you can take a little bit of acetone, put it on a rag and just dab that area and it'll dilute and break down the putty. Once you do a couple good layers and build it up, you can go ahead and attack it with 320, sand it down and get it nice and smooth. So once the Bondo and acetone putty is applied, you can just go ahead and sand all this down. You really don't need anything too aggressive. I'm just going to use 320 and try to run it along this edge here. And what that'll do is allow this part of the sandpaper to get here and this fresh edge to kind of sculpt and clean up the outer edge. You're doing this if you're having an issue keeping it completely straight or flush. You can take a plastic razor blade and kind of wrap that in the sandpaper and then really focus on that edge. This sandpaper, you put a little bit of pressure on it without the razor blade in there, it'll kind of start to fold over and weaken. It won't give you that hard, crisp edge that you need. So by doing that, it helps. Here, this is a really tricky area. Usually what I try to do is I'll attack it on one plane in this angle and really just try to get the edge. Anything too aggressive with putty, something like grab these files over here, you could potentially gouge the putty. Plastic razor blade with a little bit of 320 really can go a long way for you. That weld, and it kind of went like this, so that's why we're doing this. If you get lucky and it doesn't happen to you in a very intricate area, you won't have to do any of this. So you can see that having that nice, crisp, straight edge, how good of a job it's doing getting in there, and obviously I'll go through and clean it up. But if you're trying to do that by hand with the tip of your finger and just folding sandpaper, it's just going to get smushed, and you're not going to get that nice, crisp, defined contour that you need. And you can even use the same technique where you spray some filler primer in a dish and then just take a brush and just brush it on, just building that primer up a little bit, and just allowing it to layer on top of each other to help fill it in really good. I'm gonna go through and do the rest of it, show you how it looks, and then put some filler primer on here and show you just how good of a job we did. All right, so here we can see we went through and did our fine detailed sanding. And obviously there's some very eccentric areas on this Moon Knight helmet. So going through and kind of getting that razor blade in there really did help. What I'm gonna do now, do a quick wipe down, throw some filler primer on it, see the end results, wrap this video up. Helmet, and I sprayed it with the Bondo filler primer, and it's pretty much already dry, which is crazy. I sprayed it like maybe 10 minutes ago. Overall, I mean, you can see that you really can't tell where that seam was. I'm gonna finish this whole mask. If you take your time, use the right products, this is the process that I recommend. Allows you to reclaim and salvage that failed print, so to speak. Obviously, it's going to be different with every model to model. There are some that will be easier than others. This one, like I said, it was pretty tricky. You know, up through here and then up through here. But those tips and tricks that I gave you, it's a pretty bulletproof process. Just got to make sure you measure right and use the right products, and you'll be good to go. So with all that said and done, we're going to recap and wrap this thing up. Here is just a final glimpse at the semi-finished failed print that we had here. And it has some paint on it. This is Moon Knight. This has that fabric texture effect that I did. But this is supposed to kind of like mimic fabric. So that's why if you see that texture there, you can see where the weld is all the way across. And you'll notice that, I mean, you don't see any indication that at one point this was a you know, a failed print. No seams other than that weld on the inside. You would never know this was printed in two pieces. So it came out awesome. It fits perfectly too. It's got the magnetic back. Did your weld good or not? Will the magnetic back, you know, line up and click in place? And you can see the back here fits perfectly. Not too shabby, if I do say so myself. So I wanted to give you guys a quick look at the pretty much finished product so you can get an idea of what it should look like after you have kind of repaired, welded, sanded, and prepped your piece. So with all that said and done, I'm going to wrap this video up and give you my final thoughts. All right, guys. Well, that is it. That is a wrap on how to save a potential failed print. I've used both methods. It's really different just based on what helmet you are doing. The cura process worked best for me. Again, I touched on very important things. Knowing that angle of where it is on the build plate can be crucial. Got it almost perfect. And then obviously we went through the whole process of the PLA welding, properly using things like body filler, putties, etc., etc. Closing that bridge and using a soldering iron and welding those plastics back together is going to be far more substantially structurally sound for your model than using a glue. You know, trying to cake body filler on and shove it in those cracks where the pieces merge. Body filler is not meant to be an adhesive. It's meant to fill minor things in. So if you're caking on body filler and putties and all those things, you're gonna run into huge problems. Now, follow this tutorial. It really is going to be the best way, the most efficient and effective way to give you the best results on saving your print. Obviously, from the last slide here, the results speak for themselves. I'll repeat myself again, you would have no idea that this was ever a failed print. Just proof in the pudding there that if you follow the method that I showed you here, do all those steps, you'll never know that your print was once two pieces. If you're curious about this little helmet here, yes, I do have another video coming up on how I smooth this. It is actually a different process. It is a new process.
Oh, snap.
It's something that has evolved from a couple other different processes I've done. So this mask will be in my next video of another way of how I smooth PLA. Be on the lookout for that. And again, this thing it's solid. With that being said, I wanted to thank each and every one of my viewers and subscribers to the channel. Thank you for all your comments, all your hearts, all your likes, all your thumbs up, all the stuff that you throw at this channel. It's greatly appreciated. Gives me a lot of motivation and confidence to keep the channel going. So again, thank you. If you are a new viewer to the channel, you're not subscribed, and you do enjoy all things 3D printing, cosplay, we're bringing back Funko Pops, Funko Fridays coming back. Go ahead and click that subscribe button. Got a lot of cool things around the corner. I got updates on my War Machine suit. I got more videos on how to smooth 3D prints and different painting things and all kinds of stuff are going on. So if you like any of that, click that subscribe button. Again, I know there was a lot of content in the video, so if you guys had any questions, comments, or feedback, feel free to drop me a comment in the video. If you liked the video and it helped you out, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you want to contribute to the channel, we do have the super thanks button on the channel now. So each and every little bit helps. It allows me to pump out more content, do more giveaways, things like that. But even if you don't, just you guys being here watching this video now, giving me those thumbs up, giving me those comments is really all I need. That button is activated if you want to go ahead and contribute to the channel. Of course, any products that I did use will be in the description. And of course, that is my Amazon affiliate. So even if you guys go and get those products, I get a little bit of a kickback, and that is always greatly, greatly appreciated. That is pretty much it for now, guys. I get going on finishing up Moon Knight. So thank each and every one of you for watching. Give me a thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, drop me a comment if you need anything from me, and until next time, DW out. Later.
I know it's hard to move on.